The use application browser activity allows to open, use, and close browsers or applications in UiPath. And on this tutorial, we will learn how to use it. Hi, I'm Marcelo, and be welcome to my channel. Just before getting started, make sure your UiPath project has the modern design experience enabled so you can use the use application browser activity. So let's get started by searching for the activity on the activities panel. And here we can see it, so let's drag it to our project. And so this activity allows to open, use or close browsers or activities. So here we can see on the properties panel that we have a lot of properties that we can change on this activity. So let's get started by using it by indicating the application to automate. So this activity works for browsers and also for applications. So let's just try to indicate the notepad to get started. So first we have to open the notepad, and now let's click on indicate application to automate, and let's indicate the notepad application. And now let's run the project to see what happens. So the notepad is already open. So it was already open. So we'll see that by default, the activity will not open the notepad and will not close it. And why? Because by default, here on the properties, so we have to select activity and now open the properties panel. And here we can see that we have the property open and the property closed. So by default, we can see here that we have the options never, if not open, and always for both of these properties. And by default, the option selected for open, it's if not open. So that means that we'll only open the application or the browser if it isn't already open. And in our case, the notepad was already open. So that was the why the notepad was not opened again. And the close by default, it's the option selected is if opened by a browser. So in this case, the notepad was not opened by the activities, so it was not closed. But now, if we try to close the notepad and now run again the project, we can see that the notepad was open and then closed. Now, of course, we can customize the behavior of the activity to open or close the browser or the application. So, for example, we can set that we want always the application to be open, no matter if it's already open or not. And then, for example, we can set that we never want the application to be closed. So, for example, let's try to see how it works. So I'll just leave the notepad open. Now let's run the project. We can see that was open another notepad because we have set here to always open the application, but then we set here to not close it, so it remained opened. So now if we try, for example, to set open to never and close always, let's see what will happen. So let's run the project. And here we can see that the two notepad instances were closed because we have defined it here to always close the application. And then here the open we set to never, so it didn't open another notepad instance. So one important thing to keep in mind is that the close is the last thing to be executed on these activities. So first, when it executes, it will open the application if we define it for that. Then it will be executed all the activities inside of the use application browser activity. And then when there is nothing more to do on the application, will be closed the application if we define it for that here. Now let's just try to indicate the browser and then we'll explore another properties from these activities. So I have here open the Edge browser, so let's indicate it to this activity. So now let's just see if it's working well. So I'll leave if not open for the open property, and never, so to never close the browser. So let's just see how it works. And here we can see that was opened the browser. So then we have here the property input mode, where we can define the default input mode used by the activities working inside of this use application browser activity. So if it's Chromium API, simulate, Windows message, hardware events, or background. So for example, if we drag here the type int activity, and now if you take a look to the properties of this activity, we can see here the property input mode that by default it's same as app browser. So that means that the type int activity will use the input mode defined on the use application browser activity. Of course, we can change that if it's needed, but it's a nice thing because we can standardize the input mode used across the application by all the activities by leaving the same as app browser option selected. Then we have here more properties. So for example, the resize window property we can define if we want to resize the application or browser window. If we leave to none, it will do nothing about the window, will not resize it. Then we have here the option to maximize, restore to design time size, or minimize. So let's just give it a try. So let's here set maximize. And now let's run the project. So we can see that was maximized the browser. So now if we try minimize, and if we run the project, we will see that will be minimized the browser window, as we can see. So another important property is the window attach mode, where we can define where in their activities, so activities inside of the use application browser, search for their target elements. And what that means, let's understand in a practical way. So let's use a type into activity, and we can just indicate the browser search field. So here we can see the selectors for the element and also the window selector related to the window on where the element exists. So let's confirm. And basically we have so the selectors to find the elements, so the strict selector, fuzzy selector, and so on. And then we have the window selector that will be used to search the window where it's located the element, and this is exists per each UI automation activity like the type into, click, and so on. So when we are using the window attach mode in application instance, each activity will use its own window selector. So in this case, this activity will use this one. If we use a click, it will use its own window selector that if it's on the same page will be exactly the same selector. So just in case, let's use a click. Let's indicate the Google search button. Let's confirm. And here we can see the window selector. It's basically the same because it's on the same window. So on these cases, when all the activities are working basically on the same window, for example, we can instead use the mode window attach mode single window. And what happens when we are using the single window? Basically, the UI automation activities will stop using its own window selector and will use instead the one that is defined on the use application browser activity that we can find here on the selector property. And what is the advantage here? So let's imagine that the selector changed a bit and we need to apply that change here. We just change in one place on the use application browser activity, and then all the activities will get this update, and so we don't have to update the selector, the window selector on each UI automation activity. And that's a great advantage that can save a lot of time. So here we can see that they have got the update here, so because they are using the selector from the use application browser activity. So let's leave single window, and also here let's fix the selector. Then we have here another property specifically, for example, for the browser. So if we want to change the web driver mode, also if we want to use instead the private window, so incognito mode, we can just check here and then just make sure that we have the UiPath extension enabled on incognito mode. So to do it, it's very simple. You just have here to go to details and allow in private. So now if we run automation, we will see that it will open the browser on the incognito mode, as we can see. So we can stop. So if you like this tutorial, please give a thumbs up and also subscribe to the channel and enable the notifications bell so you'll get notified on each new tutorial here on the channel. And also, if you have tutorial suggestions or tutorials that you like to see about RPA here on the channel, please let me know here on the comments.